You're listening to the Show We Go Baseball podcast.
It really does look like they need somebody to put in that number 3 spot, presumably between Devers and Casas. Do you believe that that comes from somebody that they already have, somebody that's a free agent, somebody they trade for? Who is going to make up that production that they're losing? And he can be the answer to that too, but Justin Turner's a free agent right now. Who is replacing that right-handed bat?
Yeah, I gave my take on this on Twitter the other night, and after being called the most miserable person on Red Sox Twitter for a month, I was all of a sudden the biggest homer for this take, which is actually a great barometer on if you're doing the job well. Being called a miserable asshole all day long, and then now you're two-team friendly. If you're getting both sides of that, you're doing it right. Trevor Story, I think, has a chance to do it. People forget him for some reason. I think he's going to have a really good year. I think they think that his elbow was obviously, the healing process was underway for that. And it's getting used to throwing with the new elbow, but also, you're swinging with that. I know it's not the direct, action or whatever, but I think that was a real thing. With a full off season, with a healthy off season, taking on more of a leadership role, I think they're counting on him more than fans kind of want to admit, from what I can gather. I know it's been a kind of a disappointing couple of years. The Red Sox always point to their record when he was on the field in 22. I think they were winning at like a 700 clip. They were a playoff team. And so I think he has the chance to do that. Obviously, there's still power there. He's athletic. There's speed to add to that dimension. I don't think people are really counting on him for that, but I would say, there's the chance it's him. Soler, to me, at this point, just feels like more of a DH. You're not going to put him in right field at Fenway. And, Teoscar for, a short-term deal, I think would have made sense when I was going on and on and on about how I didn't think he was a great fit because I thought he was going to get 4 for 75 or 4 for 80, which they shouldn't have done. But, if they could have done 2 for, let's say 2 for, 40 could have gotten the deal done. Maybe you would have done that. So, Soler feels like more of a DH. They want to rotate the DH spot more, and they're going to need it for Yoshida. So I don't see that as much. I think that was a little overblown over the weekend. As of Monday, I heard not close at all, and there's a lot of teams in on them, and probably wait for the Teoscar dust to settle. But my prediction would be Story, and I think like people are underwhelmed when I beat this drum too, and I've been saying it for weeks. But Duvall was really good, and he's going to cost you like the same he cost a year ago, and like. That to me, for a team that's penny pinching like they are, like the production's not that far off. If he stays healthy, there's going to be times where he cannot make contact. There's going to be times where he homers every at bat. We saw that last year, but the body of work last year, he had a pretty good year, especially if he can play a little bit of first base, maybe throw him in the mix there. So we're not going down the Dahlbeck path for the 8th straight year. Like if he can do that, which is something he did earlier in his career, and give Casas a rest against some lefties, I think he fits the roster, pretty well. I still think, I was always like Duvall over Teoscar for the price. I still think Duvall probably over Soler for the price too, but have him slot in, later in the lineup and have Story be that guy. They were, pretty much out of it by the time he came back last year, so it didn't have a real impact on the season. But I think Story's kind of poised for a breakout year.
So you think Story bats 3rd, Duvall bats 6th or something like that?
Yeah. I mean, I would, now that I've gone public with this theory, they're not going to do it, but that makes some sense to me. Like, I think the upside of Story is still pretty high. People have kind of given up on him, but he was pretty good when he was healthy, other than the first month at 22. And this is also, I've said this a billion times on different podcasts and stuff, but have to mention my favorite Trevor Story related nugget of all time. I tweeted about how Red Sox fans had started thinking this guy was injury prone because he got hurt kind of on 2 freak things last year and then had the elbow issue, which he's been injury prone the last 2 years. And I was saying he was literally one of the most post everyday guys in baseball when he was with the Rockies. He played like almost 162 every year. And some guy, one of the great tweets of all time, what the hell are you talking about, Cotillo? He missed almost all of 2020. He only played 58 games. So take that for what it is. Uh-huh.
Yeah, I do have one other that we haven't really talked about, and that's the trade for Tyler O'Neill.
Hmm.
Kind of under the radar after all of the other stuff. He was really good in 2021, and he just hasn't been able to stay healthy. But Gold Glove winner, got some MVP vote. Actually, he's a two-time Gold Glove winner. Do you see him as a starter, or do you see him as more of a platoon player?
I see him looking back now with some distance between the trade as a why not type of thing because they gave up really nothing for him. Nick Robertson could be a Hall of Fame closer, and I'll have to eat my words. But like the way I look at it was, first of all, Santos was a minor league free agent. Those guys don't tend to have a lot of trade value, so throw that out. And then Robertson was half of the return for a guy who was the worst player based on WAR in baseball when they traded him, Kike, at the deadline. And so to me, like Robertson's not a guy with a ton of value. I know he had some pretty good outings in September. He is, just one of those 9 arms I just talked about. That's Robertson and Yovera. They didn't make the opening day roster. That's kind of already how you could look at it. So for them, I think they just looked at the cost and said, this guy's got some upside. We'd rather have a righty in the mix. Is there a chance if they go out and get Duvall or somebody else that O'Neill takes over maybe the Refsnyder role and they DFA Refsnyder and it shakes out that way? Maybe. Is there a chance that he becomes a starter based on, maybe if they trade Abreu and don't go out and add anybody or add more of a DH type like Soler, who you don't really want in right field, obviously? Like maybe. I think he gives them options, which is good. And he was a depreciated asset, in some of the ways Verdugo was, two guys who have been kind of around for a while. Um, O'Neill got benched for Hustle last year as well. I don't think the issues were as kind of common as they were with Verdugo. But I think, the upside on both players who have been kind of inconsistent is pretty similar. I think a right-hander just fit what they're trying to do a little bit more. Plus, I think Verdugo's acted obviously run tired here, especially with Cora. So to me, like, that fits in the same mold as almost kind of the Schwarber move from a few years ago. It's we'll get the guy for the price we like the deal and we'll figure out the rest of it later. Like Schwarber didn't have a place to play, but they didn't have to give up much for him. I know Ramirez was a good prospect at the time, but they, clearly felt like it was okay. If he plays first, maybe he'll catch again. We don't know where he's going to go, but he's going to be here. That's how I feel like they feel about O'Neill. And, his role, like I said, if they go out and they get a power hitting outfielder and they don't make a trade, if they don't include one of those guys in the, in a trade for a pitcher, then the role could be big, it could be small. I do know for a fact that they are actively shopping their outfielders across the board. The Yoshida thing, I think, is real. If they could find somebody to take him, along with the guys I mentioned, Rafaela, Duran, and Abreu. So, yeah, it'll be interesting. I think that's the high upside play. And again, it's a pretty low risk because you didn't give up anything and it's the last year of his deal. If Tyler O'Neill is DFA'd in August, would anybody be like supremely shocked? No. And if he's a Gold Glove, would you be? So I think it's a very wide range of outcomes. And again, they didn't give up enough where you can really, be mad at them for going for it.